Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And yes, folks, I stand with Texas. There's a lot of reasons to do so. One of them being the fact that Texas has this wonderful document on their side. That's right. They do. There's Abbott put out his statement, and everything that he said is pretty much correct. There's a little bit of ambiguity in one part of it that may not go his way, but that's okay. It's perfectly fine because of the fact that Texas is doing what it should in order to protect this country, because of the fact that our illustrious resident-in-chief in the White House, Joe, I don't know what I'm doing here, Biden, is not doing what he's supposed to do. All right? Is not what he is supposed to do. So I am telling you right now, I stand with Texas, and I got a little something, just a tiny bit of something here in just a minute. But first, what I need from you guys is we had a bit of a vote. It was an impromptu vote, but we had a little bit of a vote, and I took it to heart, and I think it might become part of the show. So we're gonna kick this off. If you are of a mind to do this, okay. If you are of a mind to do this, please do me a favor, take off your hats, stand up, and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And as you can see, I removed my hat, but I didn't want to scare the crap out of you folks by showing you my hair. So there you go. All right. So tonight, and of course, you got to remember too that we have this is a fantastic country that we live in. I don't care about anyone who sits here and says that this country is so bad. This country is not bad. This country is the greatest country that has ever graced this earth. And I just got to say that there is no place on earth that I know I would rather be, and I will probably most likely end up dying on this land that we call home, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, regardless of what happens in the next year. Anyway, all right, let me move on. Tonight, I am drinking out of my Knob Creek Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's been aged 9 years. It's a small batch. And you know, something I noticed about this bottle I didn't even realize until I grabbed it, but it's kind of hard to see, but you can kind of see how it's a little wavy back here in the back. Let me explain that to you. When you grab it, it actually feels like little finger spots. Like they purposely put finger spots in there so you could grab the bottle, and you can actually grab it from what it appears to be from both sides. It's not flat. It's it's pretty cool. I didn't even realize it at first. Of course, it came with the wax band and everything, and you know, there's a lot of them that do that with the wax band. But anyway, all right. So let's get. Bam is saying over on Rumble tonight, I'm drinking out of my Jose Cuervo. Well, just in case you didn't know, Jose Cuervo is a friend of mine. I like to drink him with a little salt and lime. Little song lyrics for you. All right, I kid. All right, so let's go ahead and get this going here. Tonight's sponsor, of course, is the Institute on the Constitution, and they were established as a 2004 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.whiskeymusings.online, to sign up, and while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.whiskeymusings.online. Or if you just want to get this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. Check this thing out. I talk about it a lot. It is fantastic. There's an 1/8 of an inch of saddle leather there. The internal pages are tear-resistant and water-resistant. And check out that stitched binding. It is stitched all the way through the pages and the leather. It comes with a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship defects. It has got sexy rounded corners, according to my fans over on Rumble. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior out there has used the information within this fantastic book to gain his civics badge in Scouts. So we know that the information inside is true and correct. All of the amendments are in numerical order. You can't get any better than that. Come on over to constitution.whiskeymusings.online and get a copy of that for you today. That's, once again, constitution.whiskeymusings.online, and pick up your copy of that and support the show in the process. And, of course, check out the rest of the information at the Institute on the Constitution. I appreciate them for allowing me to be a kind of a brand ambassador, I guess, but definitely an affiliate of theirs. Yes, please go and check them out today. All right. So I went and purchased a book here, and I'm gonna say I'm really not even into, like, I can't even say that I'm into, like, the first 1 out of 10, the first 10% of it, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, the point is it was a recommendation. It was a recommendation by none other than James Woods. Yes, the real James Woods, who, if you follow him on X, he is just a fantastic patriot. I've mentioned it before. He follows like especially the Sons of the American Revolution. He's a member. He puts up daily posts about the America's historical founding. But this book, 1776 by David McCullough. Now, David McCullough, this is David right back here. David McCullough is a well-known historian and has put together a few books on the American Revolution and our founding fathers. This is a fantastic book so far. I'm starting to love it. Like I said, I just grabbed it, And I'm starting to deal with it. I thought it would be like one of those dry historical novels that just goes through, facts and so on and so forth and just tells you about like the facts. But no, he's actually starting to weave a story, which I find just fascinating in it. And hopefully I will be finishing it in the near future. And no, it is not a coloring book. It actually has all words. In fact, I haven't even run across an illustration in it yet, but that doesn't mean that there isn't any further on down. So, to continue along those lines, oh, and I forgot to show you guys my glass tonight. Of course, in my We the People glass. Very apropos, from Lucky Shot USA. It's got the bullet going into the glass. LuckyShotUSA.com to go get that. So, anyway. I like that Knob Creek a little bit. It's got a little bit more of a spice bite at the end than I normally partake in, but occasionally it's good to get that additional bite. Well, let's move on, of course, to a fan favorite on this day in American history. And, of course, on this day in American history, for this segment, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full. Check out that thickness. Chock full of American little factoids and information. And, of course, I go through it every year. We've restarted because this is January. So now we're on to January 27th. And tonight, we're going to talk about Lincoln on reverence for the laws. Well, pretty apropos, honestly. Pretty apropos. All right. On January 27th, 1838, when he was almost 29 years old, Abraham Lincoln delivered an address before the Young Men's Lyceum in Springfield, Illinois, entitled The Perpetuation of Our Political Institutions. In his speech, he argued that liberty could not survive without reverence for laws, a theme prompted in part by the recent murder of an abolitionist by a mob in Alton, Illinois. Let every American, every lover of liberty, every well-wisher to his posterity, swear by the blood of the Revolution never to violate in the least particular the laws of the country, and never to tolerate their violation by others, as the Patriots of '76 did to support the Declaration of Independence, and so to the support of the Constitution and laws. Let every American pledge his life, his property, and his sacred honor. Let every man remember that to violate the law is to trample on the blood of his father and to tear the character of his own and his children's liberty. Let reverence for the laws be breathed by every American mother to the lip-sing babe that prattles in her lap. Let it be taught in schools, in seminaries, and in colleges. Let it be written in primers, spelling books, and in almanacs. Let it be preached from the pulpit, proclaimed in legislative halls, and enforced in courts of justice. And in short, let it become the political religion of the nation. And let the old and the young, the rich and the poor, the grave and the gay, of all sexes and tongues, and colors and conditions, sacrifice unceasingly upon its altars. And that is today's On This Day in American History. Now, I got to be honest with you, Lincoln made some great speeches. He did. He made some great speeches, considering, where he came from and that kind of thing. He made, he did a lot of great speeches. I'm kind of partial to Ronald Reagan myself when it comes to great speeches, but, that's just me. But we can learn a lot from some of these older folks out there. Yes. Just to make it clear, Bonnie, of course, says gay did not have the same meaning as now. That is correct. Gay in the old days used to be happy, like joyous and that kind of stuff. But anyway, we should all abide by laws up until the point comes where those laws are not only unconstitutional, but are also unlawful. And that is essentially where we're at today with the situation that we have on this border skirmish. Okay. But before I get to some interesting information that came out, I've got to show you. I swear, I mean, you know, my mom made a comment to me. This is a while ago. My mom made a comment to me, or maybe it was my wife. I don't remember. But somebody asked me. They were like, "Why in the heck are you so negative about Joe Biden?" Now, it wasn't a question that was, you know, a purposeful hit. All right. But essentially, it's like I've never seen you. It was more of a query in terms of the fact I've never seen you get this adamant about a political individual, in particular the president. I mean, I didn't even really get this excited and everything else, and everything else in this particular scenario when Obama was in. I mean, Obama had some problems too. But the thing about it is that Joe Biden just does. He's just not there, folks. I mean, he's not there. He's being run by sycophantic, you know, administrative people. I mean, I'm sure they're like injecting him with vitamin B12 or some crazy crap just to get him to go and everything else. But it's this kind of stuff. Like when he does his whole falling down routine, and when he gets completely lost. I don't know if anybody heard his speech, but he talked a little bit and was making comments that nobody could actually freaking interpret. Sounded like he was speaking, again, a different foreign language, but it really wasn't. And, you know, why they have the clap tracks, the applause tracks. I mean, I have an applause track, you know, something like this. You know, which is great. But the fact is that they play this for him all the time. They play whenever he does his speeches and stuff. They have the more than likely paid people standing behind him and like clapping and making it look like he said this just incredibly prophetic thing, which is, you know, not even close to some of the great orators that we have throughout history. And yet they act as though that's what he is. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're a little afraid of him not having a clapping audience, and for him to go, you know, clap for that, you stupid bastards, or something like that, you know, to give him another gaffe, like he did with the National Guard troops at one point, or the Coasties. I can't remember who it was, but anyway. He was in front of some military people who were graduating. There's just so many of them, I lose track. But here, he goes out on these tours and these trips. And like here recently, he went to go visit apparently some United Auto Worker locations. And in this particular instance, now this is Amy Klobuchar, posted this photo on X, and let me just go ahead and bring the photo up so you can take a look at it. So here's the picture, and for those of you that are listening on the audio portion of the program, I highly encourage you to go over to Rumble. Go to rumble.com, find the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel. Can't be too hard, just search up Whiskey Musings. I think I'm the only one still there, and you can go and start go and check it out. But check out this. You can also hit the links too, the link in the video to find this. But this is Amy Klobuchar's X account, and she posted this photo. Now, what you see, I'm going to describe it to you real quick, but what you see in this photo are like three men in high visibility safety vests. They're sitting in a bar somewhere, and they're interspersed with Amy and Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden is wearing a hard hat, presumably put on there to make it look like he is, you know, Scranton Kid Joe, the hard, you know, Scrabble rousing, coal mining kind of guy that, you know, drove 18 wheelers and did all of these wonderful things. But there's one thing in particular that a lot of people picked up on. Anyone who's worn a hard hat before picked up on this and have been kind of ripping him on this. Here's the photo. I'm going to zoom in on Joe. Here's the photo. Anyone who's worn a hard hat, can you take a look at that? If you're in the chat, go ahead really quick and tell me what you think is going on here. If you've ever worn a hard hat, it'll be like extremely, bam, you'll know it right away. But take a look at the hard hat that Joe is wearing in the zoomed in photo. Now I still have a hard hat from when I used to wear this. But when you take a look at this, and Coco Dominky over on Rumble got it, I think Tommy got it over on Facebook as well, although she just responded with laughter. But if you look at it, it's on backwards. That black thing with the knob on it is the adjuster knob in order for you to either tighten the headband or loosen the headband as you need in order to make the damn thing fit. Now, I've actually taken the inside harness because for those of you that don't know, and I wish I probably should have grabbed my hard hat so I could show you, but for those of you that don't know, there is a suspension netting or some kind of a support system inside that you can remove and turn it around and put it back in if you want to wear the thing backwards. Okay. But they didn't do that here. And he put it on his head and it's backwards. It's freaking backwards, folks. It is really backwards. Now, I just have one question and one question only for Joe. Hey, Joe.
What are you doing, you moron?
Exactly. If you are Mr. Scranton Kid, worked in the coal mines, you know, all of that stuff, if you did that here, you would know how to put on a hard hat. It only takes once to figure it out. In fact, the damn thing doesn't even fit right. It doesn't feel right when you're sitting, when it's sitting in there. When you put it on, you're like, oh crap, this doesn't fit right. And you would figure it out fairly quickly, especially if you had had one on your head any time in the past. Well, yeah. Now, not so much the fact that he went and put on that hat backwards, but what's worse is I guarantee you, he has got a clear entourage of essentially people, press people, PR related people, so on and so forth, who should have told him this. But then again, let's be honest, probably a good 90 to 100% of those folks have never worn a hard hat either. So anyway, I saw this and I'm just going, oh my gosh, there's no way. This is another freaking gaffe from this dumbass and his administration, because he's not all there. I'm just telling you. Yeah, he worked 3 Chevy. He worked in the coal mines on the way to the black church. Oh my gosh. And just the fact that Amy Klobuchar posted this I mean, here, let me get this a little bit. So let me just show you, because there's a hard hat on the bar down here, and you can clearly see the thing. So you can see there's an edge right over here by the money. There's an edge. It's like it's got a brim on it that is supposed to be, that's supposed to keep it up, or keep dust and stuff out of your face and that kind of stuff. But if you look at the band that's inside the hard hat, you can clearly see the gray adjustment knob on the black adjuster piece. That, again, it's designed to make it so that you can open it or turn or close it to make it fit snugly on your head so it doesn't fall off. And this guy, I mean, just, oh my God, I can't even believe. And they didn't even bother, like I said, they didn't even bother to remind him before they snapped the photo. And Amy, of course, went ahead and posted it like a complete retard. Anyway, I just had to throw that out there and make you laugh a little bit, because this is just, I mean, it's so sad. It is so sad. I mean, unless there's a thing to the story to this, okay? Unless there's a thing to the story on this, yeah, I just don't. Unless he did it as a joke, I have no idea. Knowing Joe, he probably just, like I said, he just put it on because he didn't know any different. Joey. All right. Let's get to the, oh, I forgot to do something. Hold on. I hope. Yes, there we go. That's what I wanted to show you. I'm going to keep that up. Oh, I'm going to keep this I Stand with Texas flag up all night long. So hopefully it doesn't block too much stuff. But I'm going to do it just because. All right. So another thing, of course, that we've been talking about and has been just such a huge topic of conversation, outside, of course, the whole E. Jean Carroll thing, which I might get into. I really don't want to talk about it too much, but I might get into, just because it's another one of those freaking stupid attacks on Trump. But anyway, this came in from TikTok. Hat tip to the Rainforth Report, and another hat tip to Beth Dutton, who is the person on X who posted it. But I just want to show you this. This is a video. So anybody who has been believing, oh, and I guess the flag here, let me move the flag for just a second. Anyone who's been believing that the border is not wide open, check this freaking thing out. It's a short video. Yeah, it's only about 25 seconds long, but check this out.
They let him through. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this.
Now, for those of you that aren't, able to see this, I mean, it's just a bunch of black folks. They look like they might be coming from Africa or something like that. And I can't imagine how anybody would think that our border is closed. I can't imagine how, I just can't even imagine how anyone could think that this border is closed, because it's not. It's not closed. So toward that end, here the Epoch Times came out with the December border. December border surge sets alarming record. 371,000 illegal crossings. And you can see in the image here, this coming from the Epoch Times again, you can see in this image how many people are just kind of lined up along what appears to be concertina wire set out. But the number of it, the subtitle says the number of illegal border crossings has hit a new record as the Biden administration faces growing criticism for its handling of the illegal immigrant influx. Yeah. Anyway, so, I mean, again, the border is not open. It's completely closed. Okay. Completely closed. Before I get on to what is going on with the, what's going on further, before I continue on with the show, let me just tell you a little bit of something about the, this wonderful, wonderful digital radio station that I am a part owner of, TGRN. True Grit Roots Network, TGRN.net. We have got a fantastic show starting this Monday. It's called the Monday Morning Cafe, and it runs from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Monday through Friday to ease you into, and that's Central Time, by the way, to ease you into your mornings. Okay? To ease you into your mornings. It's just going to be I don't think there's like any specific on-air personality that's going to do it. It's just going to be nice, easy blues listening to get you going for your work day. And you can listen to us by going to tgrn.net, downloading our app, or checking us out in the live365.com catalog of digital radio stations. Go to Live 365 and check us out. You can find us there, True Grit Roots Network, or you can go to tgrn.net and download our app for your phone. Fantastic group of people that we have got going on, bringing you blues 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. Check us out, True Grit Roots Network and TGRN Blues, part of the True Grit Roots Network, of course, and out of Austin, Texas. It is fantastic. We've got like I said, great morning show, the Morning Blues Cafe. You got to check it out. Starts this Monday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. All right. So I've shown you the images of the border. I've shown you the images. I mean, you've seen them. Come on. You've seen them. You have seen them all the time. And honestly, I don't know where the administration can even have any remote chance of trying to convince anybody that our crossing is that our border is actually closed. Up until the point that Texas decided to take command and start closing it. Okay. And what ended up happening, okay, is the fact that the Texas National Guard started putting up concertina wire. So I'm kind of giving you a synopsis. I'm bringing it on here. They started putting up concertina wire. The federal government, through the Border Patrol, went ahead and started cutting it to get it, to take it down. And the Texas finally said, well, we're going to pass a law that says if you enter our state illegally, that we're going to arrest you for trespassing and put you into jail. They went ahead and started doing that. Well, the Biden administration then went ahead and sued Texas. So what ended up happening throughout the lawsuits is they finally got an injunction. So the first lawsuit went through, it hit the courts, and the courts basically said, okay, look, we went ahead and we are saying that we have to have the border open, and Texas fought it and has continually fought it, and they ended up getting an injunction in, I believe it was the appeals court, an injunction put in saying, well, the federal government can't cut the razor wire until we're done figuring out whether or not Texas actually has the legal authority to go ahead and do this stuff. Now, for those of you that may not know, Arizona kind of did the same thing a while back. Now, this was prior to, way prior to Trump. But they got into a thing where they were actually having border crossings, and they created a state law that said that if you crossed the border illegally, that you would get arrested. And they ended up going to court as well. Of course, this was pre the current governor, because she doesn't freaking care. She's just towing the party line and allowing them to go out. But the thing that went to the Supreme Court that everybody got all excited about was the fact that they essentially took that injunction that blocked the Biden administration from cutting the razor wire and removing it, that was done by the lower court. They held a hearing on it, and they basically said, okay, we're going to remove that injunction now. So the federal government basically went from cutting the razor wire to not being allowed by the courts, and now back to, okay, we can allow you to cut the razor wire again. Well, that's only part of the story, because of the fact that the case itself between Texas and the United States, in terms of all the immigration policies, all of that is still in play. So it's just the injunction that got taken out. Now, the funny thing about the injunction, which this is not really, I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's not really funny. The thing about the injunction is the fact that, just like one of John Roberts's opinions, it was very narrow, but very specific, and yet it also didn't have any reasoning behind it. It just said, there you go. And so one of the things that's been going on with all of the leftist libtards is that they've all been saying, well, it's illegal for Texas to block it. That's not what the injunction was. The injunction was simply to prevent the government from clipping the white razor wire. What's happening is the injunction got taken out, and so the Border Patrol can actually clip the razor wire now. But it didn't say anything about whether or not Texas could continue or not continue what it's doing. And that's where we're at. So what does the Texas National Guard do? Because the federal government and the Biden administration said, hey, you stop doing that or else. But they never specified what the or else was. And so they, Texas basically called what appears to have been a bluff on the part of the federal government. And according to this article in the Daily Wire, they are continuing to build razor wire border barriers, defying the Biden admin. So the Texas state authorities are continuing to refuse Border Patrol agents access onto a contested swath of the border in Eagle Pass, Texas. Now, that is actually a little bit of a misnomer. Pretty much everybody already kind of knew that this stuff was going on, but here's what's happening. Here's what's happening on this, is that while the Texas National Guard is continuing to fortify the border barriers, and of course, the biggest question on everybody's mind is, are we going to end up in armed conflict? Okay, are we going to end up in armed conflict between the Border Patrol and the Texas National Guard? Well, I got a little bit on that, but before I go, I got a simple answer to this entire situation. I've got a real simple answer. It's called just enforce existing laws. And I've been saying that on social media as well as a bunch of other people. They're like, Biden could end this tomorrow and get himself out of the corner. Granted, it's not going to make him look good politically, but it could get himself out of this situation by simply enforcing the border. Just enforce the border laws. Well, I got curious and I'm like, somebody was saying that Biden's border laws, like, oh my gosh, Biden doesn't, Biden wants to enforce the border laws, but the border laws, it was Title 42 and it was all these other laws that got put in during COVID and all this other stuff. Well, I went and did a little digging. Excuse me for wanting to do my research, but check this out. This from Cornell Law School. Title 8, U.S. Code, Section 1325. Improper entry by an alien. This is the law that he could have his Border Patrol enforce. Let me just read it to you right quick for the audio listeners. And this is the first paragraph right here. Any alien who, 1, enters or attempts to enter the United States at any time or place other than as designated by immigration officers, or 2, eludes examination or inspection by immigration officers, or 3, attempts to enter or obtain entry to the United States by willfully false or misleading representation or the willful concealment of a material fact shall, for the first commission of any such offense, be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 6 months, or both, and for a subsequent commission of any such offense also be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 2 years, or both. So this is pretty much it. If they don't come in, essentially, just to kind of break this down, because this is in legal speak, just to kind of break this down, if an alien, and by an alien, that means anyone who is not a United States citizen, attempts to enter the country outside of what we are calling our ports of entry, then they can get fined or imprisoned. For their first offense, up to 6 months. For their second offense or more, they can go up to 2 years in terms of imprisonment. And then, of course, there's the whole deal with the fines. Now, the fines are between $50 and $250 for each attempted entry that can go in here. And then, of course, it goes twice the amount, so they can double it, for any alien who has been previously subject to a penalty under this subsection. This is all the Border Patrol would have to do is enforce this law. That's it. That's it. They'd be able to just enforce it. We'd have, granted, we have prisons and jails filled with these people, but this is just the simple law that Joe is refusing to enforce. And he is seriously causing a problem here. Now, constitutionally, okay, so let's back out and let's just take a look at this from a constitutional side of things, okay? Constitutionally, first of all, Joe Biden stood there and swore that he would perform the duties of the office of the President of the United States to the best of his ability, and he's not doing that. Okay? He's not doing that. But here's two parts that are being called out by Abbott, and Abbott is correct on this. If you look up Article 4, Section 4, and look at the what's written there, it says the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion, and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened, against domestic violence. Now, a lot of questions come into play in terms of what they consider an invasion. But invasion could, does that have to be an armed invasion, or can it be just, what we're dealing with, which is a flood of people coming across the border? Well, that's the question. And that's the question the courts are going to have to look at once this case actually makes it all the way there. However, Abbott also calls out another section of the Constitution, which is applicable, although more in a transgentle, or God, I just lost it. Tangential, there it is, tangential manner. And that is under Article 1, Section 10, in the second paragraph. Let's see. Where does it say? Here it is. So in toward the bottom of the paragraph, it basically says, no state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, or enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. So basically what that means is that the federal government, as a part of the contract, which is called the Constitution, is essentially saying that no states can do this unless they are actually invaded. So they can't defend themselves unless they actually get invaded, and the federal government can't mobilize fast enough in order to repel the invasion. Well, that's the part that Greg Abbott is trying to get. That's one of his constitutional reasonings for it. Yeah, I was having troubles pronouncing tangential. Anyway, all right. So here's another surprise that actually just kind of happened, and this kind of makes things just a little bit more murky in terms of the waters. So this, according to Red State, the Border Patrol Union has proclaimed support for the Texas National Guard. So the Border Patrol basically said, yeah, we're really not doing what you guys think we're doing, what the press is saying that we're doing, which is essentially, oh yeah, the Border Patrol's just going through and like removing all the concertina wire and all of the barriers put up and all that. Yeah, the Border Patrol, the rank and file, are not doing that. In fact, the Border Patrol union basically said, yep, the rank and file, we're not doing that kind of thing. We're not cutting that stuff down unless we get into a specific situation where we have to cut the wire. And then we look for and talk to Texas DPS, which is the Department of Public Safety, and the Texas National Guard, which is the Texas Defense folks. Now, unlike what some people are saying, there actually isn't a lot of conflict. In fact, there have been on-premise reporters down there at Eagle Pass that have essentially been like, well, how much of a, could you cut the tension in the air with a knife kind of idea? And the fact is that no, there actually isn't. The Border Patrol thinks that Texas is doing the right thing. That Texas is doing the right thing. And they are not going to start arresting Texas National Guard members following their lawful orders. This is from a post on X. The rank and file BP agents are not going to start arresting Texas National Guard members for following their lawful orders. That's fake news. The Texas National Guard and the rank and file BP agents work together and respect each other's jobs, period. If Texas National Guard members have lawful orders, then they have to carry out those lawful orders. They also said as well that if the Border Patrol gets lawful orders, they will also carry out those lawful orders. Now, notice how that was worded. Lawful orders. Lawful orders. What's interesting about this, and I can only speak from the Texas National Guard side, although I imagine that the Border Patrol probably has something very similar. But in the oath of enlistment for the military, they essentially have it in the oath of office for the military folks, the enlisted ones. I don't know about the officers, but for the enlisted ones specifically state that you will follow the orders of the officers appointed over you and the President of the United States in accordance with the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Now, inside the Uniform Code of Military Justice, it actually calls out the difference between a lawful order and an unlawful order. And that the unlawful order does not actually have to be followed. So here's the key, is whether or not Biden decides to put out what is considered an unlawful order, and whether or not either the Texas National Guard or the Border Patrol will actually follow those unlawful orders. One unlawful order very well could be something that is unconstitutional. That they could, essentially, in terms of the Texas National Guard, okay, so for those of you that don't know, and this is part of my argument with the whole thing on the DC and how it wasn't, January 6th and how it wasn't an insurrection and how the DC National Guard didn't get called up. There's a couple things known as the Posse Comitatus Act and the Insurrection Act. And there are specific steps that have to be taken within both of those acts in order for the United States military to be able to operate on American soil. Now, the key here, though, is that it cannot be what's considered like the regular army. Okay? It has to be the National Guard. And the reason being is because the National Guard is actually set up in two separate ways. One, to help governors in times of emergency and things of that nature, which we've all seen, like through Katrina and any of the hurricanes or any of that stuff. But then they can also be called up to go to war and be subject to the orders of the president. And this is part of where people are thinking Biden might go, is that he may go to the Texas National Guard and do what they call federalizing them. Okay. Now, if he does that and provides them with what is considered to be a lawful order, they will have to follow it. If he does not do that and they stay under the control of Greg Abbott, then everything keeps pushing forward with it. Okay? Well, it's not just, though, the state of Texas in terms of the state of Texas being the only one standing up for us as well. I've also seen, not confirmed, but seen through many, many sources that up to 25 state governors have stood with Texas. And so that's essentially half the country. So half the country has basically said, we stand with Texas in this case. Okay? Now, Yeah. Right. Naraz, the lack of the National Guard use. Like our governor didn't do that in the Summer of Love in Seattle. He didn't even know what was happening. What the hell are you talking about? He's an idiot. Governor Idiot. He's not Governor Inslee. He's Governor Idiot. Sorry. I digress. But anyway, 25 states, 25 governors have essentially said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and stand with Texas. Now, 10 of these states, according to this post-millennial article, 10 of them have sent troops, National Guard troops, to go help secure the border. And Governor Abbott has literally just said Texas is prepared for clash with the feds after 10 states send troops to help secure the border. Okay? And that, honestly, is a good thing. And here's the thing, a lot of people are like comparing this to, say, Fort Sumter. Okay. But here's the thing is that Fort Sumter was an actual takeover, a physical takeover of a Union fort or a government fort by the Confederate troops. And that essentially was an unconstitutional act. In this particular case, we have the Constitution on the other side because the federal government now is the actor that is not doing what they are supposed to be doing. And so in this particular case, history, I think, is going to show, once everything gets over and done with, history is going to show that Texas is operating in the correct format. So Tucker Carlson talked to Greg Abbott and asked Abbott over the phone if the administration declared that it plans to federalize the National Guard of the state of Texas, what will be your response? Abbott responded by saying that they are prepared if that were to happen. We will continue to do exactly what we are doing, saying that Texas will continue to put up razor wire to enforce the border. When Abbott asked if he could see conflict arising, he gave a similar response. So Abbott is actually sitting there and saying, you know what? We're just going to continue doing what we're doing, and not necessarily push this any further. And yet, Biden has really painted himself into a corner with this. He really has. He really, really has. And so the other thing that happened, of course, that drove the leftists nuts is the fact that Trump posted on Truth Social and he urged states to deploy their National Guard to the Texas border to help everything out. And the leftists were just going bananas over this. They were saying that that makes him a seditionist. That makes him an insurrectionist, and that alone should remove him. Of course, that just helped them kind of fuel. But in reality, it doesn't, because really what's happening here, and what the left doesn't seem to quite understand, because they don't understand the Constitution, is that this country and that particular state has a right to protect itself from invasion. It's had so many things that have been taken from them in terms of resources, in terms of safety, in terms of all kinds of just horrific things that have happened to them by allowing those illegals to just flood across the border with no issues whatsoever. And keep in mind, the Border Patrol actually isn't a Border Patrol anymore. What they're doing is they're essentially fast-tracking them to get them inside the country and then providing them with, phones, credit cards, whatever it is, and allowing them to just stay here. Instead, waiting for their court dates, which admittedly are somewhere between 7 to 10 years down the road. Now, an interesting correlation with that, 7 to 10 years. What just happened in 2020? by the way. What just happened in 2020 that might affect things that did affect a few states? Well, let me tell you. It's called the census. And if you recall, Donald Trump tried to get the census to differentiate between illegals and U.S. citizens. But based on the Constitution, the apportionment of the states, the apportionment of the states in terms of the electoral college votes that they have, as well as their representatives within the House of Representatives, are all based off of every 10 years doing a census. Now think about this. If these illegals are coming through the border and they are essentially staying here for 7 to 10 years, that means we're going to hit another census. And they can be a part of it. And those bodies will be counted. And that's going to change everything. All right, so let me take a break real quick before I move on to my next article. If you are a fan of the show and are interested in picking up fantastic Whiskey Musings logo gear, I've got some great hoodies. I've got great t-shirts. I've got all kinds of great stuff, glasses, mugs, coffee mugs, things like that, water bottles with that have not only my logo, but also my motto, which is when I drink, I think. Go and check out my store. Go to store.whiskeymusings.online. That's store.whiskeymusings.online and pick up some fantastic stuff like caps. I have this cap that has my "When I Drink, I Think" on it. My saying. I have these wonderful gaiters. And this is also my logo, so you can check it out. This is the logo that you'll get on the sweatshirts and the t-shirts too. This is fantastic right here. You can pick these up. Just head on over to store.whiskeymusings.online and check out all of my offerings. And I promise you, I am not trying to break the bank with these. In fact, I try to keep the prices as low as I possibly can and make sure that you guys aren't, ripped off, to be honest with you. And I only take a small portion of the profit to come and help the show. So I prefer doing that, selling products instead of having you guys like donate or subscribe or do any of that stuff, because I feel like you should be getting something back for your money. So head on over to store.whiskeymusings.online. That's store.whiskeymusings.online and get yourself some great Whiskey Musings logo gear. Once again, that's store.whiskeymusings.online. Go and check them out. Okay, I have a question. Somebody has a question in the chat about the gator. Asking how stretchy are they? You want to use it as a tube top? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It might work. I don't know if you can see that, but it might work as a tube top. You may be able to do it. If you do, you might have to send me a photo. But hey, I've got a sports bra for the ladies that's there. You might want to take a look. I want to take a look at the sports bra because I do have it for the ladies. That would be very interesting. I don't know. Oh, I guess it will work for you. Okay, well, I don't want to sound like a creeper, but that might have you might have to get a picture when that happens. Like I said, I don't want to sound like a creeper. Don't send it in if you do, Anyway, all right, moving on. Yeah, so, Coco Demiki is the sports bra looks cool and the leggings. Yep, I have leggings. I have ladies' leggings as well. So you can go and check that out. Go to store.whiskeymusings.online and at least take a look at them and see what you think. I know that there's at least one person who has the leggings. So anyway, thank you for obviously supporting the show. That would be fantastic. All right. Okay, so continuing on with this whole border thing, another thing that's been hitting a lot is the leftist lunatics that are out there. They are all talking about how this is the Republicans' problem and that the Republicans are blaming Joe Biden for this because the Republicans don't want to fund border security. Okay, well, they, of course, are not telling you the full story about that whole thing. So first of all, the House passed H.R. 2 a long time ago, and it's been put out and over to the Senate, and the Senate has been sitting on it. Well, okay, I'll be honest. Hold on. Comment in the chat. Yes, you flustered me a little bit, only because I don't want to seem like a creeper. Asking a woman who's basically saying that she's going to put on one of my gaiters as a top is like, yeah. Anyway, this reminds me of the freaking Merkin debacle that I had a while back. Anyway, all right. So anyway, to get back on track here, they are essentially trying to blame the Republicans. And what they don't understand, or what a lot of people have forgotten, and what the mainstream media is not bothering to mention, is the fact that H.R. 2 has been sitting in the Senate. For them to essentially go and shore up the border. So I don't understand how they can get off. I mean, other than the mainstream media helping to cover this, the whole truth up for this, but the mainstream media are basically covering up for this because H.R. 2 has been passed. It's been sitting in the Senate. The Senate has not bothered to even take it on. And the Senate has been working to try and come up with an alternative offering of their own. But that alternative offering hasn't been quite figured out yet. And here, according to the Epoch Times, Speaker Johnson is saying that any deal that's created in the Senate is dead on arrival in the House. Now, Biden has basically said that he vows to shut down the border if Congress can just pass a deal and put a bill on his desk. Well, here's the problem with this, folks. Here's the problem with this. And that is the fact that any details of this deal that have been leaked so far show that this is not a leak, or this is not a deal to lock down the border. Okay? This is not a deal to stop illegal immigration. This is not a deal that would be good for America. Because what he is trying to do, according to the leaked draft of this said deal, okay, appears to suggest, and this is from the piece here in the Epoch Times, appears to suggest the terms would allow for up to 5,000 illegal immigrants to be released into the country per day, on average over a week, or up to 8,500 in a single day before Border Patrol agents have to remove them. So he is essentially opening up and saying, hey, we're just going to go and allow a certain number of illegal immigrants in as a part of this deal. Now, they're also tying, like frickin' the government does, because God forbid we actually have a single subject bill that shows up in either houses. Okay? But they're also tying this to to money for Ukraine and Israel and everything else, because we can't just pass single issue bills. For whatever reason, these nimrods up in Congress, and yes, that includes both houses, these nimrods can't seem to understand that passing a single issue bill is the way forward for this stuff. They always have to do what's basically called adding the pork, or adding an omnibus bill or something like that, to where oh no, we're not going to pass anything about border security just on border security. We got to have, Ukraine aid, and we got to have Israel aid, and we've got to have, money for some project of some pet project of some congressman who's off in, BFE building a bridge into nowhere. That's essentially what they're doing here. So don't sit there when the leftists come out and they start talking about this thing and they start saying, well, the Republicans are blocking this up. It's all a bunch of bullshit. It is a bunch of bullshit. And President Biden knows it. And he's urging, of course, the Congress to support this package, saying that the terms would be the toughest and fairest set of reforms ever to secure the border. Well, again, like I pointed out in the first, before I even got into the whole border thing, all he has to do is enforce immigration law as it stands today. And we'd be just fine. Like I said, he can end this standoff with Texas tomorrow if he just says, you know what, you guys are right. I'm going to shut down the border. He actually said it the other day. He was like, I don't even think that the border has been closed for the last 10 years. He actually said it out loud, that he doesn't think that the border is secure. According to the Speaker Johnson, he is basically saying that, yeah, this bill, whatever it is, and again, keep in mind, these are just leaked details. We don't know the final bill yet. We don't know any of that, okay? But he's saying that it's dead on arrival. Now, somebody in the chat over here asked me what I think about Speaker Johnson. I honestly think that we just basically, the Republicans basically kicked out McCarthy for another McCarthy. At this point. Okay. I don't see where Speaker Johnson at this moment in time, I don't see where Speaker Johnson was any kind of a step up from McCarthy. I mean, he's basically done the same thing with the continuing resolution that McCarthy did. He is not anywhere near at this point a strict conservative like he was purported to be. I don't see it. I just don't see it. So when Biden sits here and talks about this border and all of these things, they're still trying to, omnibus it here from the piece. The senators are looking, the group of senators from both sides have been working from several weeks to finalize a funding agreement that would cover both border security and foreign aid. And they are looking to secure $60 billion in aid to support Ukraine in particular. And the Department of Defense, of course, they note, has already been used up its designated funds for Ukraine without requiring approval from Congress. The Biden administration is seeking more than $100 billion in funding, with $14 billion allocated for the border. That's it. $14 billion for the border, $60 billion to Ukraine. So that leaves roughly $30 billion or so to go to Israel. Quick math. Probably not entirely accurate, but they're asking for the funding itself is asking for an addition of 1,300 Border Patrol agents, which are basically going to be glorified Uber drivers, 375 immigration judges, 1,600 asylum officers, and over 100 cutting-edge inspection machines designed to detect and halt the influx of fentanyl at the southern border. Yeah. This is a boondoggle, folks. Don't let the mainstream media put you into a situation where you think this new bill is going to do anything. It's not. It's not. It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. This bill is hopefully going to stay dead on arrival. I'm hoping that Johnson keeps his word. Well, the Biden administration went ahead and decided to strike back on Texas. So rather than confronting Texas directly, they went ahead and did something else. They halted natural gas exports. So natural gas, liquid natural gas, LNG, is a big export out of Texas. And Texas has a bunch of LNG filling stations, let's say, along the Gulf of Mexico, down on their coastline. So the Biden administration basically has been talking about getting ready to pause approval for the liquefied natural gas export terminals, but they finally pulled the trigger. And there's a lot of people who are sitting here and are thinking about the fact that this is designed essentially to attack Texas, because Texas is one of our biggest export states, or states that export liquefied natural gas. But what's even worse, though, I mean, it's bad enough that he's attacking Texas, but what's even worse, the Biden administration also doesn't understand this, is the fact that it's also going to harm our economy. It's also going to harm several of our allies and their security throughout the world. Now, he's doing this under the guise of appeasing the climate change activists. But as one person pointed out, liquefied natural gas is much more cleaner burning than coal and oil. So this is going to be a bit of a problem. Now, Colleen is calling me out and saying that it's her understanding that it's a halting of new projects, but existing ones are still exporting. Well, that's potentially true. I mean, it doesn't really, I mean, it mentions how it's a delay in order to expand reviews of such projects. So it delayed for liquefied natural gas export terminals. So you're right. It very well could be the new stuff. It very well could be the new stuff and not the old stuff. But I mean, realistically, when you're talking about things like, oil production and oil refining and things like that, you need to understand the EPA hasn't allowed a new refinery within the United States since probably like the 80s to 90s. And he is essentially, hampering us from using any kind of petroleum products or even refining any kind of petroleum products, utilizing any new technology. So everything that was already pre-existing has stayed. But he's not allowing for any upgrades to be made whenever whenever we talk about the EPA and stuff like that. A lot of the times what they do is they don't allow for any upgrades to be made. They don't allow for any changes with the idea that they want to bankrupt people. And what they don't understand is that there is absolutely no way that we are going to be able to get away from petroleum products and go to all green energies. It's not going to happen. Probably not within the next 10 years. Definitely, we'd be looking at 20 to 30 years at the most. But even then, we've got so much stuff that needs to get upgraded and updated the expansion of capacity for all of this stuff. It's really, really not going to happen here. So, as this one person, Logan Dobson over on X, points out, stopping additional liquid natural gas exports is going to do nothing for us, but they're going to push Russia, which they keep talking about Russia and Ukraine, Russia, we got to stifle Russia. And they went and did all of these things to like stifle Russia to make it, put on all these tariffs and these things on Russia to keep them from gaining money. And so far, all they've really done is helped Russia out. In fact, the Russia-China relationship increased because of the relationship or because of the tariffs and everything that the United States put on them, and increased their exports. Actually increased their exports. So Russia, United States, and Qatar are supposedly the top three here. And now that we're being paused, that's just going to make Russia and Qatar and whoever's number 4, it's going to do nothing but help them out. And it's going to do nothing but destroy further our economy. And speaking of the economy, they've been touting for a while now about the GDP. And I know some of you are like, economy talk again. But this is very important for you guys to understand, for all of my Whiskey Warriors and for any leftists who are out there listening to this. You guys, you have to understand what's going on here. There is a huge, huge bubble that is coming. It's going to burst. And that bubble is essentially being prepared and pushed, okay, by the Biden administration and its spending. Okay. And this commentary piece in the Epoch Times really kind of brings this out. But, they keep the White House keeps talking about how we have an amazing GDP and we have an amazing jobs report. And that just shows that our economy is doing absolutely fantastic. But in reality, it's not. They don't fit with the experience that you and I and every other American are experiencing every day. And according to the Census Bureau, contrary to belief being put out by the Biden administration, real wages and real income is actually down, not up, because of the impacts of inflation. Now, a lot of people sit here and they say, oh, but inflation's come down. It's now around 3%. What they forget to understand is that the last 3 years, there is a cumulative effect. There is a long-term effect. All of that savings that you had when the interest rates were at not the interest rates, but when inflation was at like 9%, okay, or better in some cases, and even higher in certain classifications, like the most important stuff, food and energy, which isn't even counted in the inflation rate that they present to the general public. The challenge here is the fact that all of your savings is already gone. What took you 10 to 12 to 15 to 20 years has all been eaten up in 3. And this is part of the problem when you start looking at these economic reports from the mainstream media. They are highlighting what is essentially a fake number, because in particular with the gross GDP, gross domestic product, that has been enhanced by all of our government spending. And we've just surpassed $34 trillion in our debt. Highest it's ever been. If we don't find a way to start paying that down, Our interest rates right now have even gone over our typical spending for our military defense. And so this whole idea that the GDP is doing great, it's a fallacy, people. It's a joke. It's a bubble. It's a mirage. They've been pushing it and increasing it based upon the money that the Biden administration has been spending over the last 3 years. The inflation rate, they have removed the things that actually cost the American people the most, which is food and energy and rent, housing. And they keep touting these as showing that this stuff is just fantastic, that the economy is doing all so great. And it's not. The average American knows this. This is part of the reason why Biden's ratings, his approval ratings, especially on the economy, are in the toilet. And this is where the disconnect happens when people are sitting there and saying, oh, you know, the uppity upper crust are like, oh, the economy's doing great. My 401k is doing awesome. Well, what they don't tell you is that the 401k actually lost a shit ton of money first over the last 3 years and now is starting to come back. But you've already lost that cash. You've already lost those savings. They're trying to cover this up. Speaking of covering up, I don't know if anybody noticed, but a lot of the major newspapers that are out there, have been laying off workers. The LA Times laid off a massive amount of their staff just recently. Sports Illustrated got rid of all of their staff. They pretty much just closed down. And the mainstream media folks are getting freaked out. Like Taylor Lorenz, as an example, was sitting there talking about, oh my gosh, you know, there's so much stuff. We're all losing our jobs, and well, maybe if you actually reported on the truth, you might still have your job rather than being a state-affiliated media. And speaking of state-affiliated media, this came out in the FEE stories. Legacy media is no longer shrugging off concerns about the federal debt. This is about that $34 trillion that I was talking about. But one media crown jewel informed listeners that they had little to fear from this mountain of public debt. NPR. This is the question. This is the headline. Is NPR state-affiliated media? Yep, they are. I can tell you that right now. So late December, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen borrowed $90 billion in just one single freaking day. The federal government's public debt eclipsed $34 trillion for the first time in history. The steady accumulation of public debt has been a mainstay in modern America, seemingly as inevitable as death and taxes. But something strange happened when the U.S. passed yet another $1 trillion debt milestone. Nobody talked about it. The federal debt starts a new year at a level that's hard to grasp, $34 trillion. Federal deficits and that was the New York Times declaring that in a piece. And it's unsustainable, according to Mark Goldwyn, his senior vice president at the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. He told that to the Washington Post while describing the situation. Maya McGuinness, president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, also in a CNN interview says, dangerous, a truly depressing achievement. The legacy media is no longer shrugging off concerns about the federal debt. Okay, it's encouraging, but it's long overdue. Yeah, $90 billion in one day back in late December. And they say that, and You listen to the leftist online and they all talk about all the federal debt that got added during the Trump administration. The last number that I saw was that Biden in just his last 3 years has added $6 trillion to the debt directly. And we've got one more year to go with this guy. This is a big, big deal, folks. Because the only way for us to get out of this, honestly, in terms of a government organization, seriously, is to increase taxes, which they keep calling for, or cutting spending, or literally both. Well, we know that they're not going to cut spending. And as long as they keep spending, inflation rates are going to go up. Interest rates are going to start going up because of the fact that they have to try and tamp down inflation rates, because that's the only tool that the Federal Reserve actually has in its toolbox in order to try and prevent high interest rates. You know, the left has been talking about, oh, we're not in a recession. We haven't hit a recession yet. Unlike what was, explained or talked about, the doomsday economists were saying, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Folks, this administration has put us on the fast track for a downfall that we can't even imagine. And by the way, Mark over on Facebook brings up a good point. So when does China say pay up or quit? You know, they are actually in a bad situation too. And they hold a good portion of our debt. And that's part of the reason why we're having so much problems. We're having issues trying to get people to purchase our debt. They are trying to trying to sell bonds, and they can't even find any. They are having a hard time finding people to buy up the debt. So they increase the returns on it, and that gets some people interested in it. But then when they do that, of course, like we talked about, it screws everybody who bought other bonds at lower returns, lower interest rates. So where are they going to go with this? Well, the last article that I have here in regards to this is, again, they're going after the millionaires, well, in this particular case, the billionaires. And they keep talking about that. But like I've shown you doing that is going to be this is just a never-ending cycle. The Democrats have no idea what to do. They have literally no idea what to do, and they keep hounding on the same things over and over and over again. So we're just going to have to see what the heck is going to happen. But I'm telling you right now, 2024, folks, 2024 is going to be a very rough ride. I hope you're prepared. I know I'm doing everything I can to be prepared, but it's going to be a very rough ride. All right. No question for whiskey tonight. I didn't receive one, but if you want to submit one for next week, do me a favor, head on or send me an email. Send a question for whiskey into fans, F-A-N-S, at whiskeymusings.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at whiskeymusings.online. And I'll get you on for next week. I currently have none in the queue. You can also submit your pet of the week for Wednesday. Wednesday is Pet of the Week, the segment that I do at the end of the program there. Send me a picture of your pet and names and whatever else, and what other information, cute stories, etc. on your pet. You can do that at fans at whiskeymusings.online. Do me a favor before you head out tonight. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button on Rumble, because that makes Rumble pay attention and can help grow the show. Also, share this show out to your friends. Please, I'm trying to make this grow. I'm trying to get this program to expand, and I can only do that, of course, with your guys' help. If you don't already have a subscription on Rumble, head on over to rumble.com, sign up. It's free. And then search out the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel and make sure you click that green follow button. We'll see everybody on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your weekend, folks. And we'll see you on Wednesday right back here on the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, 8 p.m. Eastern. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings Broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.